The mission of the U.S. Soccer Foundation is to enhance, assist, and grow the sport of soccer in the United States with a special emphasis on programs and projects serving vulnerable communities. The main program that we focus on with the U.S. Soccer Foundation is Soccer for Success, but the foundation is also involved in a grants program, field building, and a pass-back program that allows organizations across the country to exchange used equipment. I'm going to talk a little bit about the reasons why the U.S. Soccer Foundation created the Soccer for Success program. As many of you know, the United States is suffering from a childhood obesity epidemic. 1 in 3 children in this country are overweight or obese. This video talks a little bit about the results of that statistic.
I probably would make a time machine.
I would make medicine for the sick.
I'd probably invent something new.
我会赢到5个总冠军戒指。
If I could have an extra 5 years to live.
You said 5, right?
5 years. It's a long time.
I would try to fix everything I did bad.
I would bring my uncle back because I miss him very much.
I would get more hamsters.
I would probably want to go looking for dark matter.
I think I'd go looking for aliens.
If I could live an extra 5 years...
I was thinking about making like a helicopter, like a wooden helicopter, but I don't have any wood.
I want to go check out the moon sometime.
I'd probably teach my sister not to hate tuna.
I would try and invent a machine that lets you run at light speed.
If I had 5 more extra years to live.
I would be the boss of all the chipmunks.
Eu cantaria na frente de 1 milhão de pessoas.
I don't really know. I think I'd do anything. Why are you asking me that?
In addition to that statistic, there are 18 million children in the United States that need mentors and only 3 million children who receive mentors, leaving a 15 million child mentorship gap. During the after-school hours, every 4 minutes a child is arrested for a drug offense, and every 7 minutes a child is arrested for a violent crime. So throughout the season, I really want everyone to keep in mind that the Soccer for Success program has been created to combat these statistics. That is our mission throughout the entire season. This video talks a little bit about what we're doing with Soccer for Success here in Denver. The Colorado Rapids Youth Soccer Club started serving children with Soccer for Success in Denver 2 years ago. The U.S. Soccer Foundation provides a quarter of the funding for the program, and the Social Innovation Fund provides another quarter. Over the last 2 years, we've matched funding with the Daniels Fund, the Piton Foundation, and the Colorado Health Foundation. There are 4 components to the program. Those include physical activity, nutrition education, mentorship, and family engagement. The program runs 3 days a week for 90 minutes for 12 weeks in the fall and 12 weeks in the spring. During each soccer practice, we try to get our kids physically active for at least 60 minutes. The CDC recommends that each child receive 60 minutes of moderate to vigorous activity on a daily basis. Each child also receives a free healthy snack before soccer practice. And nutrition is integrated directly into the Soccer for Success curriculum, which we'll get into a bit later. When we look for coaches, we look for mentors first. So we want to find staff members who are going to be positive mentors and adult role models in the lives of the children. For a lot of these youth, these staff members may be the only positive adults they have in their lives. We approach family engagement from a variety of ways. Each month, we send home a nutrition education newsletter to the families. These newsletters give tips and tricks for families, as well as share what their children learned during the Soccer for Success program for the month. We also engage partners like Cooking Matters and the Colorado State University Extension Office to provide 6 to 8 week nutrition education classes for families. And finally, each site will get to participate in a family jamboree. This jamboree is an opportunity for schools from across the Denver metro area to come together and compete in a tournament. Last spring, we had 700 children and adults attend these events. This will give everyone an overview of what the Soccer for Success program looks like nationally. The program started in 2009, serving 4,000 children, increasing to 8,000 the next year, 16,000 in 2012, 18,000 in 2013, and during the 2014-2015 school year, they will serve 30,000 children. In Colorado, from 2012 to 2014, we served 1,200 players per season. We had about 41% girls and 59% boys. A majority of our players were in 3rd to 5th grade, and 94% of our players qualified for free or reduced lunch. The Soccer for Success program is heavily data-based, so we take pre- and post-season BMI, an aerobic capacity measurement, and a nutrition survey, and waist circumference. Between 2012 and 2014, 84% of participants categorized at the beginning of the program as overweight or obese improved or maintained a BMI percentile. 64% of these participants improved or maintained their waist circumference, and 86% of participants who were categorized as having high or some health risks at the beginning of the program improved or maintained their aerobic capacity. Over the next 2 years, we plan to expand to serve 4,000 children. This fall, we will serve 2,000 youth with 200 staff. In the spring, we will serve 2,800 youth with 300 staff. And in fall 2015, we will serve 4,000 youth with 400 staff. Most of you probably already know the program requirements, but the program operates 3 days a week for 12 weeks in the fall and 12 weeks in the spring, and must include all 4 components of the program model. Each staff member is required to have a background check, and you can complete that by completing your coach contract and emailing that in to me. Each team has 1 coach, and each team is made up of 15 players, while each site has 1 site coordinator. We require that all guardians complete required forms prior to children playing on the team, and we will also collect data from each child in the program. We'll go over both of those in a little bit more detail later. The Soccer for Success weekly schedule includes 2 practice days and a game day. Here in Denver, that game day normally includes children playing with other teams at their own site. Some schools are within walking distance of each other, and you can set up games with other site coordinators. The daily schedule has 8 steps, including the staff setup, a warm-up and opening circle when the nutrition portion of the program is introduced, an activity in which that nutrition point is reviewed, a second activity, a scrimmage, a cool down, and a closing circle and cheer. This year we're very excited to introduce the Mobile Soccer for Success curriculum. This is the website for that curriculum, as well as the username and password. I'll go ahead and walk you through that right now. So when you get to the login page, you can then choose a grade level. So for example, I'm going to be a 3rd to 5th coach today. It'll automatically take you to the first week of the curriculum, and it lays out day 1, day 2, and day 3. And we can see that our healthy nutrition theme is healthy bodies. So I'll take a look at day 2, and we'll go through all 8 steps of the practice. And at the top, I can see that I'm going to be talking about limiting fat and added sugars. Underneath that tab, you can see all of the nutrition education points that should be introduced in your opening circle. If I drop down the warm-up and opening circle tab, I can then look at different examples of warm-ups for the day. And of course, you are always welcome to create your own. If I click on the activity, you can see that it lays out my purpose, how to set it up, and step-by-step instructions, as well as soccer coaching points. On the right-hand side, I can see that there are different phases and also a diagram below. I click on Activity 2, it'll have the same layout. Click on Scrimmage. Emphasizes that we want to play small-sided games with goals, no goalkeepers, and use a continuous play model. Click on the cooldown, I can get more examples of warm-ups and cooldown activities. During the closing circle on cheer, it tells me that I need to review the soccer and nutrition topics, check in with players, and leave on a positive team cheer. And the last step of the day is the staff debrief. So if I want to look through the various weeks, I can just click on weekly sessions at the top. I'll select week 6. And I'll get the same overview here. This website also includes attention grabbers, which can be very helpful to keep your children engaged throughout the practice. And you can get quick access to warm-up and cooldowns here on the right-hand side. If you click this icon on the right, it gives you a little bit more information, some more about the Soccer for Success philosophy, about the foundation, keys to success, and then soccer terms here as well. If you have feedback on the curriculum, you can also click the Contact Us link, and this will send an email directly to the foundation. The mobile curriculum is not meant to be looked at while on the field. The mobile curriculum is meant to allow coaches to plan their practices before practice begins.
Hey coaches, for the next few slides we'll be talking about team management. We'll go into administrative things like registration, announcing teams, parent volunteers, our add drop policy, entering attendance, and then we'll take you through an everyday practice. If you have your team book, go ahead and get that out and you can look at the registration packet. This will show you what you need to fill out if you're going to add a child to your team when season has already started. Required, we need to have the child's full name, date of birth, grade, student number, and any allergies or medical conditions. Also, we need to have them fill out a release waiver, and then they can fill out a model release, the parent guardian information, and the parent-student contract. If you can have the parent and child fill out the entire thing and not just the required parts, that would be excellent. There are things on there that help us track the children and help us make our program better. But if they're in a hurry and can only fill out the required parts, that's okay as well. With season about to start, some of you have probably already announced your teams or your site coordinator has. This is just what you will do to help your site coordinator. Coaches will call the 15 students on their team, or you can post the students on your team in a high traffic area at the school on a bulletin board. Then the site coordinator and coach calls the students who are on the wait list. That's so that all the children on the wait list know not to come for the first day of practice, and then all the children who are on the team know to come for the first day of practice. It's very important that you let kids know that they're on the wait list so you don't have like 100 kids showing up for your first day of practice. Like I said, the site coordinator can post the Soccer for Success teams in a high traffic area in the school on a bulletin board. If you would like to help your site coordinator do that, go ahead and talk to your site coordinator about how they're going to be announcing teams. so that you can help them in the best way possible. Parent volunteers are a great resource for you as a coach. You will know if a parent wants to be a volunteer by looking at their child's safety information form. There's a box on there where they can check if they want to be a volunteer with Soccer for Success or not. Parents are really great for helping things like setting up field or assisting in supervising snack. If you get along really well with a parent, they could also be your assistant coach. Volunteers, however, are not background checked and are under no circumstances allowed to be with any child or group of children without a Soccer for Success member with them. If you see on some of your forms that you have some parents who want to be assistant coaches or want to help be volunteers with Soccer for Success, go ahead and give them a call and see if they'll be helpful for you during this season. On this side, you can see that on the left is the coach's responsibility for our add drop policy and the site coordinator's responsibility. We'll just be looking at the left, but I wanted you to look at the right as well just to know what your site coordinator will be doing. The responsibility for the coach is to call the child who is absent. This is not just so that you can tell the child to come back to practice. This is also to show them that you really care about them and build that community in Soccer for Success. If the child remains absent, notify child's guardian that he or she is dropped from the program. Go ahead and use your judgment on these circumstances. If you know that a child has been gone for a long time because they've been sick and they'd still really like to be a part of the program, or other situations like that, then there can be leniency. But if a child just is absent and you have lots of children on your waiting list, go ahead and drop them and add a child that's going to be coming to practice regularly from your wait list. To add a child from the wait list, you're going to go ahead and call that child, and then you'll ask them to come to practice the next day when you have dropped the other one. Once you have added a new child or dropped one, let your site coordinator know so that they can update that on Salesforce. So when you add in your attendance during the week, that child will already be updated there for you. This slide will show us how to take attendance while we're coaches. You're going to be taking a daily attendance. On the next slide, I'll show you an attendance sheet, and we can kind of go through that. You're going to enter the date for the session. Then you're going to write P, A, or L for each child. This stands for present, absent, or late. Then for the children that are present or late, they'll get a snack, and you'll circle the P or L once they've gotten a snack. If a child drops, cross his or her name off the list and write the new name in that same column. Once the child has been in the program for a little while, you'll have an updated snack roster which will have their name printed on there, but for the time being, go ahead and just use whatever pen or pencil you have. Then initial the date of practice to indicate that you were there for that practice day. The attendance roster is what you'll use to enter your attendance into Salesforce. This needs to be done monthly. If not submitted by the due date, you will not get paid for that month, and you'll have to wait till next month to get your paychecks. I would recommend entering your attendance weekly instead of monthly. It will kind of be a process your first time you try to do it, that first week, but after that it should take about 5 minutes just to go ahead and click that attendance. When you do it weekly, you'll only be doing it for 3 days, so it should go by really fast. As you can see on the left, your site coordinator will print your Excel attendance snack sheets every month, and we'll give those out to you. They will also update your rosters electronically so that you can add children's attendance into Salesforce. And then they will collect your attendance sheet at the end of each month and submit them to Sarah at the Rapids. This slide is a picture of what an attendance sheet should look like. As you can see, you'll write in the student's name right here, and then over here will be every session. So you'll write a P or an A or an L for every child in those sessions to indicate if they were there, absent, or late. Above you can see that there's the date where you'll write in what day each session is happening, and then you can initial on the snack attendance sheet as well to indicate that you were there for practice. As I said earlier, that you need to put your players' attendance into Salesforce once per month. Again, I would recommend doing that weekly. Detailed instructions for player attendance entry can be found in the procedure manual on pages 11 and 12. This is in your team book. If you do not have one yet, that's okay. You'll either receive one at a training, or we'll have to bring them out to you, or you'll have to come pick them up from the office. There's also step-by-step video instructions for entering attendance into Salesforce that are available on our YouTube channel. Like I said earlier, the first time you do this, it should take a while, so I would recommend doing it after that first week if you can. That way you're only entering it for 3 days. Salesforce is a little tricky at first, but once you get the hang of it, it should go by really fast.
The Soccer for Success Coach Mentor Blueprint defines your role as a coach through the metaphor of building a house. Just like a house is built from the bottom up, we want you to thoughtfully construct your coach-mentor-mentee relationship. Our blueprint has a foundation and a house that builds throughout your season. Specific actions are associated with specific time frames within your season because that is when those actions are most vital. However, you need to embody all the characteristics listed throughout the entire season. Understanding the youth we serve is about gathering knowledge about the communities in which you will serve and your mentees. Those of you that have had experience working with youth in at-risk communities know that they may face a lack of physical activity, limited or no access to learned sport, and high rates of poverty. Many of the communities that we serve may lack resources to support the overall mission of the Soccer for Success programs such as food deserts and a lack of safe places to play. Through this process, you will develop cultural competence, which is to know about, be sensitive to, and have respect for different cultures. In addition to being culturally competent, you must also gain an understanding of the psychological and physical characteristics of your youth and ensure that the program you run is developmentally appropriate for the age that you serve. Although it is extremely important to gather knowledge about the deficits of the communities that you'll be working in and the cultural and developmental norms of the youth that you serve, it is important that you do not use this information to make blanket assumptions about their needs and, more importantly, about their abilities. Being strength-based is a mindset. It is the lens that we want you to use when you approach your season. Don't approach your youth feeling sorry for them and what they lack. Focus on their strengths. For example, think about the fact that they show up to practice, are going to school, and have a parent or caretaker that signed them up for the program. In addition to focusing on individual strengths, identify the strengths that lie within and around the communities that you are working in. For example, recreation centers, food banks, and field space. It is important that you provide a solid foundation for the relationship that you will build with your mentees. As a Soccer for Success mentor, you will need to make sure to embody all of the qualities in the foundation throughout the entire season. The first quality that we're going to discuss is positive communication. Positive communication means being supportive, highlighting when skills are learned, giving high fives, and showing positive communication verbally, non-verbally, and even in written form. Comments like good job and nice try are important to creating a positive team culture. However, we want to be more intentional about how we positively communicate with our mentees. And we want to do that in 3 different ways. Be specific, so rather than saying good job, say, Sharon, that was a great pass, way to lock your ankle. When communicating, we still want to keep that strength-based lens. So when communicating and motivating your youth, you want to highlight the things that they are doing well and then communicate how they can build off of those strengths to achieve the success that they desire. So for example, Teddy, that was a great pass, way to lock your ankle. Next time, also point your plant foot. We also want to be curious. Ask questions of your youth. Use guided discovery where appropriate. Show your participants that you are interested in their lives. As coach mentors, we must ensure that young people know they are valued and heard. Empathy is the idea that we are truly understanding what someone is feeling. We don't just feel sorry for them that it is happening. Oftentimes we confuse the meaning of empathy and sympathy. So luckily we have a great video that will help us decipher the two.
So what is empathy, and why is it very different than sympathy? Empathy fuels connection. Sympathy drives disconnection. Empathy, it's very interesting. Teresa Wiseman is a nursing scholar who studied professions, very diverse professions where empathy is relevant, and came up with 4 qualities of empathy. Perspective taking, the ability to take the perspective of another person or recognize their perspective as their truth. Staying out of judgment, not easy when you enjoy it as much as most of us do. Recognizing emotion in other people and then communicating that. Empathy is feeling with people. And to me, I always think of empathy as this kind of sacred space when someone's kind of in a deep hole and they shout out from the bottom and they say, I'm stuck, it's dark, I'm overwhelmed. And then we look and we say, hey, you can climb down. I know what it's like down here, and you're not alone. Sympathy is, ooh, it's bad, no, you want a sandwich? Empathy is a choice, and it's a vulnerable choice, because in order to connect with you, I have to connect with something in myself that knows that feeling. Rarely, if ever, does an empathic response begin with at least. Yeah. And we do it all the time, because you know what? Someone just shared something with us that's incredibly painful, and we're trying to silver lining it. I don't think that's a verb, but I'm using it as one. We're trying to put the silver lining around it. So, I had a miscarriage. Oh, at least you know you can get pregnant. I think my marriage is falling apart. At least you have a marriage. John's getting kicked out of school. At least Sarah is an A student. But one of the things we do sometimes in the face of very difficult conversations is we try to make things better. If I share something with you that's very difficult, I'd rather you say, I don't even know what to say right now, I'm just so glad you told me. Because the truth is, rarely can a response make something better. What makes something better is connection.
Brene helped us understand empathy. We know modeling is a crucial way to teach, and empathy is no different, but it's also important to actively teach it. When an incident occurs, we want to label the emotion and the action that it caused. If one of your participants called the other a name, this is how to address it. Mike, Sarah is sad. You hurt her when you called her that name. We also want to process through the child's lens. Always give them the perspective through their own eyes. How would it feel if someone said that to you? Often, depending on the developmental age, the response may be, I wouldn't care. So again, label the action. So you would not care if someone told you that they didn't want to be your friend? Keep in mind that due to the developmental age, you may not always get the understanding that you are striving for. We also want to create a place where both children can safely express their feelings. Do not tell them to suck it up or get over it. When they feel hurt, let them feel hurt. Let them know that it's important to feel and express that emotion. By understanding and feeling, they will be more likely to be empathetic and understand how others feel. And finally, we want to show compassion non-verbally. Mirror through your facial expressions compassion and care. Sometimes when very bad things happen to children, they don't know how to understand and read facial expressions. Teach them through modeling what the emotions look like. Self-care has two parts. We know that it's difficult to be empathetic, and in fact to be a good coach at all, if you are not taking care of yourself psychologically and physically. Secondly, self-care means being a role model for your participants, practicing what you preach. For example, when you're around your youth, you are stressing the importance of living a healthy lifestyle and then showing up to practice with burger and fries. Next, we're going to talk about empowering and supporting our youth. Coach mentors should always seek ways to empower their youth to be their own agents of change and teach them how to manage and solve conflicts in healthy and adaptive ways. We want to empower our youth by giving them both a voice and a choice. By voice, we mean encouraging the youth to share their opinions. So during their opening circle, we want to have an open discussion about whatever that nutrition point is that day. Another way to give youth a voice during practice is to allow them to pick the warm-up and opening circle and actually lead those activities. By choice, we mean young people should be involved in decision-making. So give them decision-making in team issues, practices, and strategies. When youth take on new responsibilities and address issues that they may face on their own, you must also remain there to support them. Through these new challenges, provide youth with positive communication. For example, if you were teaching a youth to ride his or her bike for the first time without training wheels, you wouldn't just take the training wheels off. Put the child on the bike and hope everything works out. You want to be there by their side, encouraging, perhaps physically balancing them out, so that they can experience success and gain the confidence to eventually learn to ride on their own. With this being said, we do not expect you all to be experts or guidance counselors on all topics and issues. However, we do expect you to prepare and arm yourself with resources in order to support your youth as you did to prepare for your season. This allows you, again, to connect them to tools and resources that they need to be successful. And finally, we want to make sure to establish boundaries with our youth. Boundaries in this context are norms, expectations, and rules around your practice and program. Boundaries are important to guide appropriate coach, mentor, mentee behavior. As coach mentors, you are not friends with your participants, nor are you their school teacher or parent. You need to help define this new coach, mentor, mentee relationship for your young people. In order to support that appropriate relationship, establish boundaries in these areas: conduct, contact, and communication. So contact refers to the frequency, type, and method. How and how often can your students contact you? For this particular sphere, we want to refer back to whatever the school or site, a recreation center's rules are on physical contact with students. Some sites will allow you to hug children, other sites will only allow a side hug, and still other schools will allow a high five. So find out what the rule is at your school. We also want to set expectations as they relate to how your participants treat each other and you. This should be done on the first day of practice, and these behavior norms should be reinforced on a daily basis. The third sphere is communication. For instance, we want to create expectations around what topics are acceptable for youth to discuss in your program. Another important topic is discussing the expectation of confidentiality. As your youth begin to open up to you, they may come to you with serious personal situations. If you deem them in danger, it is your responsibility to report it to the appropriate staff and the authorities. Make sure that they understand reporting is the protocol, so they don't feel betrayed by their coach mentor. Now, I don't think that that's a discussion that has to occur at the beginning of a season, but if a student begins to tell you something that is a serious personal situation, please make them aware of that expectation of confidentiality. Throughout the season, we want to continue to maintain boundaries. We do this by enforcing rules fairly among all participants and ensuring that you are also following the boundaries you set. Even if we establish and maintain clear boundaries, we know that ultimately our youth may push or cross the boundaries. We want to address the crossing of boundaries in 4 ways. Identify the behavior that needs to change, and don't make it personal about the child. Make sure that you are specific about what they did wrong and why they should respect your team's boundaries. Reassert the expectation. Again, discuss the boundaries for your program and let them know that boundaries are in place for a reason. Affirm your commitment. Do not waver. Stay committed to enforcing your boundaries. And also be curious. When boundaries are crossed, recognize that, like most disruptive behavior, kids are trying to fill an unmet need. Ask questions to find out the source of their behaviors. If necessary, identify resources to connect them to. During weeks 1 and 2, we're going to be focusing on our first impression. When first interacting with your participants, it's important that you have a positive attitude and show a genuine interest in getting to know them. Pay attention to nonverbal cues when first approaching your young people to ensure that they are comfortable and that you aren't crossing any personal boundaries. These are a few different ways that you can put your best foot forward, including being positive, learning everyone's names, being curious, asking questions and learning more about your youth, and creating a safe, positive, and fun environment. During weeks 3 and 4, we want to focus on sustaining the connection. There are a couple of different ways that we will do this. The first is to be consistent. As a coach mentor, you want to continue to live up to the high standards you set for yourself and your team at the beginning of the season. During this time in building your relationship with young people, they will test you. They will cross your boundaries to see if you will waver and are not completely convinced that you will make yourself available before and after practice like you did the first 2 weeks. By providing consistency and being something and someone that your participants can count on, this will ensure that you will gain their trust and foster the development of your coach-mentor-mentee relationship. Additionally, research shows that consistently spending time with a caring adult in a mutually trusting relationship can help youth develop a sense of positive self-worth that will help them develop resiliency. And through this positive relationship, a child begins to feel a greater sense of social acceptance. The second way that we're going to work to strengthen the connection is through goal setting. We wait until weeks 3 and 4 to set goals because now you have developed a sense of trust and a rapport with your young people. You will have the opportunity to build your participants' individual competencies by guiding them through the goal-setting process. At this stage in your coach-mentor-mentee relationship, you will want to make on-the-field goals, such as working on a soccer skill, improving their fitness, or related nutrition goals. When setting goals with your participants, it is important to allow your mentee to take the lead on setting the personal goal for themselves in order to create a sense of ownership, which will ensure that they will be motivated. It is equally as important to ensure that their goals remain personal and that they are not comparing themselves to their teammates. They should be focusing on improving their own skills, aerobic capacity, nutrition, and nutrition habits. Lastly, after guiding them through the goal-setting process, make sure to check in on them in order to ensure that they are achieving their own personal goals. During weeks 5 through 10, we're going to focus on sustaining the connection. In weeks 5 to 11, be intentional about the impact that you will make on your players' lives and how they will develop as people. You want to make sure that you think through this process. A key to achieving this is building off of the success achieved through the on-the-field goal-setting process to guide your participants through translating the process to positive youth development outcomes. We are all here because we know that there are skills and lessons that you learn through playing sport that can be easily applied to your everyday life. These include teamwork, high effort, sportsmanship, empathy, commitment, patience, resilience, and positive self-talk. Engage participants in a discussion about their goals and overall progress as a player. Label the skills and personality traits that have been effective while they have been working toward achieving their on-field goals, and encourage them to make off-field goals such as academic behavior and healthy lifestyle goals. Guide them through this process and encourage them to apply their new skills and personality traits to their everyday lives. During week 12, we want to focus on honoring the connection. Now that we have successfully made a positive connection with our participants, it is important to honor your relationship and the work put in by all parties by properly closing out your season. For youth who have experienced trauma or abandonment, including many young people who are in foster care or are involved in the juvenile justice system, the end of a mentoring relationship can be especially difficult. It is essential to have a formal process that helps both the mentor and mentee move along after the relationship has ended. You must be intentional about preparing them for the transition that they will face now that the season has ended, and provide them with proper closure. The progress that your mentee has made as a result of your mentorship is something that you want to be sure continues even after the program ends. Prepare them for this adjustment by setting up final check-ins with your mentees. These check-ins will be more intimate than the end-of-season festival and should happen separately. During these check-ins, discuss any challenges that some of the youth may have faced and how they were able to overcome these challenges. Ask your participants about their plans now that your program has ended. If possible, provide them with guidance and connect them with resources as needed. Challenge your mentees to set goals to work on until the following Soccer for Success season. This will keep your mentees task-oriented, allow them to think and plan for the future, and increase their likelihood of returning to the program next season. Though the blueprint only lasts one season, the Soccer for Success program includes 2 12-week seasons each year. It is our hope that both you and your participants will return each season. When you are faced with a mix of returnees and new participants, it is important that you start your spring season from the beginning of the blueprint with those new participants while continuing to honor the relationship built with returnees.
It's very important during the first week of practice that you set the behavior norms right away. A great way to get this routine started is by your snack setup. Talk to your site coordinator, they might be handling this already, but if you are the one that's going to handle your snack setup routine, I would recommend putting the tables kind of far apart from each other so that each team is together, but not all the children are together. As you can imagine, children are pretty wild just getting out of school. If you can have a really good routine set up, you can limit how wild they will be. The Rapids Recognition Program is something that we are introducing this year. This is to help kids have competition throughout the whole Soccer for Success season, and this is an opt-in program, so if you don't think this will work for your school, that's okay, but if it's something that you would like to use, your site coordinator should have the Rapids Recognition certificate in their Dropbox. This is something that you can use to recognize players once a week, once a month, at the end of the year, however you want to use it. You will also be getting cards to keep track of points for your teams and your players. This way you can see how players are doing throughout your entire season. Also, it's a great way to quickly address behavior problems at practice. If you have a sheet and you see a player is acting out, you can say, oh, that's -1 point, and then you can go ahead back to your session instead of having to stop and talk to that player to get them back into the game. Your behavior norms should be talked about during your first day of practice, and you should let players know what a Soccer for Success season will look like and what the behavior should be. Allow your players to be part of this conversation so that they're bought in and will really listen when you're handling behavioral problems. On the first day of practice, you're going to do your initial equipment distribution. Every piece of equipment will have a number, and that number is going to go along with the player's number on the attendance sheet. So if Sarah is player 1 and she drops from the program, the new player will be player 1 for the entire season. Let players know that they are responsible for their equipment. So if they are player 1, 2, or whatever number they are, they need to be responsible for their ball, shin guards, and socks, and also jersey. Jerseys don't give out until scrimmage day, which is the 3rd day of practice. This is just so that scrimmage days can be more special to players and they can wear their jerseys on those days instead of every day. Also, it helps keep the jerseys cleaner so you don't have to wash them as often. Players will get their equipment at the end of the spring season, so they will do 2 seasons of Soccer for Success before they get all their equipment. Opening and closing circles are a really great part of Soccer for Success, and I think something that separates them from other practices. Opening and closing circles are a great time when you can actually build community with your players and check in and see how everyone's doing. These are also a great time where you can go over your nutrition points for the day and your soccer points for the day. When you're introducing the nutrition, it doesn't have to be a discussion or a lecture. It can just be a quick explanation of what that nutrition will look like for the day. And then if you have players that want to add something to that, let their voice be heard. During the soccer points, tell the children what soccer skills they will learn and what will be focused on during practice. Some of the drills players will not be bought into until they understand what soccer skills they're gaining from these drills. So make sure that they understand what they're gaining from practice that day so they can be bought into the entire practice. And then during the closing circle, you can review these nutrition points and soccer points so that players can really latch on to what they have learned during practice. Nutrition is sometimes a tricky thing to talk about at a soccer practice, but understand that if you're bored with the topic, your players will be too. Turn the topic of the week into one simple statement, something really quick that you can say about whatever you're talking about in the nutrition. So this is just to say it doesn't have to be a discussion or a lecture every time. It can just be a simple statement and you can get right into the rest of your opening circle. Also, if you make it something really simple, you can say that throughout practice, and that'll reiterate that point throughout practice instead of doing it as a big lecture or discussion at the first or end of practice. Come up with new ways to add nutrition themes into your practice. You don't have to just follow what the curriculum suggests for you. Also, this year there will be a supplement curriculum in your team book, and this will have ideas with each activity how you can add nutrition into that. That is just to get you thinking so that you can see that really the games that you already know, you can add nutrition into and turn them into a Soccer for Success game. One way to use the Rapids Recognition program and also get players bought into the competition of Soccer for Success and setting goals for themselves with their soccer skills is to use the skills competition every couple of weeks. So you'll do foundations, figure eights, and juggling. Those 3 are part of your data collection when you're collecting soccer skills, which is the 3rd day of data collection. But those can also be used as something that you can do throughout your entire season. Maybe set aside a certain amount of time every practice to work on one of these. And this can be something that players can work on their own at their house. And this way they can really get bought into learning more about soccer. Juggling is a really great skill for players to work on their own. Not only does it improve their touch and their skills, but it also is something that they can get better at really quickly and once they get the hang of it. Then you can give awards at the end of the season for most improved in each category or most touches in each category. You could also do this weekly or monthly, however you think would work best for your program. You can also give awards site-wide or for each team, however you think it would work. Again, that certificate for the Rapids Recognition Program, your site coordinator will have in their Dropbox. Hopefully you won't have too many indoor practices, but living in Colorado, you're probably going to have a few. The site coordinator will plan out specific indoor space areas for each team, and they'll notify coaches where are okay places to have indoor activities. This can be gyms or hallways or cafeterias or classrooms, whatever your site coordinator comes up with. You'll notify the school administration when you'll be going inside. This is just so you don't disrupt anyone who's doing things at the school inside during that day. Indoor practices are sometimes tricky, and I hope this year that the supplement curriculum can really help you have better indoor practices. In the supplement curriculum, it's broken down into hallways, gyms, cafeterias, and classrooms. So there are games that fit each one of those areas in an indoor practice. Also, you can change and add activities to the session that you're already going to run to make those appropriate for indoor practices. A great way to do indoor practices with coaches is to have different stations. So say one coach will be in the gym, one coach will be in the hallway, another coach will be in the cafeteria, and then you can rotate teams around each station. That way players get to be in a different area of the school, which is kind of fun and exciting for them. And also it's easier for coaches to maintain the players during an indoor practice, and you'll be running the same activity over and over. So it'll be a really nice and easy practice for you and a lot of fun for the kids. I've kind of already talked about the supplement curriculum, but I'll give you kind of a breakdown of it right now. Supplement curriculum is designed to help you with indoor practices and also have activities to add into your practices when you don't think 2 activities is enough. I want to talk about the continuous play model for Soccer for Success practices. This is where during a scrimmage, if a ball goes out of bounds, you'll throw a new ball in immediately instead of waiting for the players to go chase that ball. This way players are playing the entire time and getting as many touches on the ball as they can, so that during practice they're really improving their soccer skills instead of chasing balls. Also, you'll be teaching nutrition throughout games. You can see that on the supplement curriculum, and also in the curriculum provided for Soccer for Success, you can see that the nutrition is in there as well. For indoor activities, again, like I said, they're broken down into hallways, cafeterias, and gyms. If you want to take a look at those sometime before you have an indoor session, that would be really helpful so you can kind of have an idea of what you do if you do have to go indoors. Also, for K through 2 coaches, there's a lot of new activities for your players that you can add into your practices so that players aren't bored during practice, or you're not extending one game a really long time just to fill up the time that you have allotted for practice. Also, don't be afraid to play tag. That's a great game to get players moving, and you can add in soccer balls to different tag games, and you could also create a new game for them. For 3 through 5th coaches, the supplement curriculum will be really helpful, but it won't have as many games for you. I would recommend downloading the NSCAA app. This is a really great app for 3 through 5 activities, or really any coaching activities. It's broken down into really simple categories like dribbling or passing or shooting, and once you click on that, it'll have a bunch of games under that topic that you can work on with your players. And then you could just add in the nutrition if you want to from the topic of that week. Also in the supplement curriculum are scrimmage ideas, And these are just different ways that you can do scrimmages on scrimmage day. So it's not always just 4v4 or 5v5. Also on scrimmage days, please only use 4v4 or 5v5 and no more. This way players are always getting a lot of touches on the ball, and it's a lot more fun game for them, especially beginning players. No matter if you decide to use our programs or if you want to use your own behavior management system, you need to set the norms on the first day of practice. Each team should decide on specific behavior norms with their coach. This should be more of a discussion between the players and the coach. Each team should decide on consequences to violating behavior norms. The coach should write these out and keep them in a team book so that they can remind the players every practice. If you want to use the behavior norms from your school, that is okay, but you should still have the discussion with the Soccer for Success children and their coach so that the players can feel they are part of the Soccer for Success program and not still at school. The behavior management system that we have designed is based on restorative justice. When a child takes something away, he or she must give something back to rectify the situation. Whatever the consequence is, it must include the player somehow giving back to the team. An example I like to use is when a child kicks another child's soccer ball away, that child must go and retrieve the soccer ball and bring it back. Or, for example, a child is disruptive during a drill. Maybe during the next drill, they help the coach set it up. This is a way that they can give back to the team and feel a part of their discipline process. It's also important that in the restorative justice discipline process, the child should have a voice in the discussion of the consequences with the coach. Coaches should take time to talk with a player after they have been disobedient or been disruptive during a practice. Tell the child what they have done and ask the child for ways that they can rectify the situation. The coach should lead these discussions with the child, but have the child be an important part of the discussion of their consequences. The card system is a way for coaches to be able to handle discipline during a practice without having to stop the session. Coaches will each have a card for each week that'll have each child's roster number listed on the left, as you can see in the picture. Throughout practice, coaches can add or subtract points from a player's tally based upon behavior. Players start each practice with 5 points. Coaches tally points at the end of the week, month, and season to recognize participants and team with best behavior. We'll talk more about how they can recognize these players in a bit. The great thing about the card system is that coaches do not have to stop practice to handle discipline. Instead, they can turn to the child that is being disobedient or causing a disruption during practice and simply subtract a point from them. The child will understand that they have done something wrong, and after that activity is over, the coach can go over to the player and they can talk about ways for restorative justice to take place so the child can be a part of their discipline. Here are some examples of why points can be deducted: for disrespect, violence, not following instructions. The great thing about the point system is that with restorative justice, the points can be awarded again. For outstanding sportsmanship, going above and beyond to respect coaches, teammates, and facility. Also, a restorative justice points. It's important to note that every child's case is different, and the coach should be able to differentiate between players that need to have points deducted and players that don't. As I said earlier, here are some examples of restorative justice. If you would, take a minute, look at the slide, and decide how you would handle situations keeping restorative justice in mind. As you look through this example, you can see that a child is running through the activity and kicking her teammate's soccer ball out of the grid and disrupting the activity for the entire team. If the coach is using the point system, they can simply deduct a point from that player and return to the activity. After the activity is over, they can go over to the player and talk about ways that they can rectify the situation. One idea would be for the player to help set up the next drill so that they can quickly go into the next activity. This way the child has made up for disrupting the last activity by making the next one go even faster. The Rapid Recognition Program is a way that players can buy into the Soccer for Success program and have something to look forward to at the end of every week, every month, or every season. Player can be recognized for outstanding sportsmanship or remarkable leadership, going above and beyond to make a significant contribution to his or her team. The Player of the Week will receive a custom certificate that you will have in your Dropbox of recognition at the end of practice on the last practice day of the week. You can make this award however you want. These are just some ideas for you to start thinking about how you can recognize your players. This is a way that players can bring home a certificate to their parents and take pride in the achievements that they've made throughout the season of Soccer for Success. They can be recognized for their skill on the soccer field or for being a great teammate or really helping out the coach. Not only is this a great way for players to buy into the Soccer for Success curriculum, but this is a great way for parents too as well. When the child brings home the certificate, the parents just get another glimpse into how great of a program their child is involved in.
During this slideshow, we'll talk a bit about child protection. The rapid social media and electronic communications policy is that no child should be following a coach on internal and external websites, including Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, or any other form of electronic communication. And players should not be following coaches. Coaches should not be following players. So all social media communication should follow the 2D policy. This includes not only Facebook messages, text messages, but also phone calls as well. So if a staff member for some reason needs to call a child on their personal phone, then another background checked Soccer for Success staff member must also be present for that call or as a third party on that call. If a coach needs to text message a child or email a child, then another background checked staff member should be as a third party copied on that text message or on that email. If a child comes to you with a complaint of abuse, the first thing you want to do is make sure that child knows that he or she is not responsible for the abuse and that that child did the right thing by telling you what happened. Try to control your facial expression during these kinds of conversations. Showing shock or disgust may scare that child away and make them not want to tell you any more about the situation. Take any story of abuse seriously and report it. Even if you don't think you have enough information, still make that report. The hotline will tell you whether or not they can pursue the report, but they will still make a note of it. So if someone else calls later and makes another report of abuse, they might be more likely to be able to go and investigate. Another thing to keep in mind is that you don't want to force the child to tell you more than they are comfortable with telling you. You don't need to investigate the report and prove that it happened. You just need to report a suspicion. If you flip to the Child Protection Policy section of your site coordinator binder, you'll find a one-pager with our process for reporting abuse. Your coaches will also receive this one-pager. The first thing you want to do is immediately report to the proper authority. So we have the phone numbers for Denver, Arapahoe, Adams, and Boulder listed on our one-pager. If you need other numbers, please let me know and we can add them. After you've made a report, immediately call or email Sarah and let her know that you've made that report. Next, if you are a coach, you want to work with your site coordinator to make sure that the proper authorities in your school know. So whether that be the guidance counselor or the social worker, make sure that that person knows and can touch base with the child. The person who makes the report is also required to complete an incident report form within 24 hours. The program managers will then report the suspicion to the report abuse response team, which includes the executive director of America Scores Denver and the executive director of the Rapids. If the suspect is a staff member, then he or she will be immediately suspended and the program manager will report the suspicion to the U.S. Soccer Foundation. The program managers will then follow up with the staff member who made the report 1 week after the report has been filed. Again, all background checks must be handed in to program managers 7 days before coaches are in contact with children, and site coordinators must receive a confirmation email from program managers that coaches have passed their background checks. We're also going to talk a bit about staff behavior towards children. So each situation must be both observable and interruptible, and we want to avoid all one adult, one child situations. These are a few different situations where it can be a challenge. So for bathroom and water breaks, we want all 15 players on the team going into the bathroom together for water breaks. We don't want one coach walking one child inside to the bathroom. We want all 15 children under the supervision of that coach throughout the entire practice. During BMI measurements and waist circumference measurements, we will have one male staff member and one female staff member, and then one female child and one male child in a room with the door open during the entire process. That will avoid the one adult, one child situation and also make the situation observable and interruptible. If a child's transportation home arrives late, please ask another staff member to stay with you at the site until that child's transportation comes. If that staff member cannot stay, ask the second to last child's transportation home to stay with you. Just explain that you have this policy and see if they can stay a little bit later. If that's not possible, stay outside with the child in a public area. And if it's too cold outside or if it's getting dark, stay inside of your school or recreation center, but try to stay in front of one of the cameras in the school. As you all know, this is a mentoring program, and we do want to make space for that. But these mentoring moments can occur in group situations or also one-on-one, but those situations can be off to the side of a group while still visible to children and other staff members. We also want to make sure that our fields and our equipment are safe. So coaches should walk the field before practice, ensure that there's no traffic, clear the field of debris, and look for any strangers. All balls should be fully inflated so that children do not roll their ankles, and all children are required to wear shin guards throughout the entirety of practice. Some children will not want to wear them because they'll say that they're too scratchy or they're too big, but one way that you can avoid this is have the kids put on their soccer socks underneath their shin guards. This will make them not scratchy and also will make sure that the shin guards fit properly. I already talked about this a little bit, but we want each coach to be responsible for his or her team of 15. They should be under that coach's direct supervision during the entirety of practice. So we don't want a coach sending, 4 children inside to go to the bathroom while they have the other 11 children out on the field, or vice versa, and having 7 children stay with another coach while they take 8 children inside. We want those children under the direct supervision of their coach during the entirety of practice. The Denver Public School policy is that any non-Denver Public School employee who is a coach with the Soccer for Success program at a Denver Public School must always be within the line of sight of a Denver Public School employee. So if you have any coaches at your school that are not DPS employees and they take their children to the bathroom, they have to go with another staff member and team who is a DPS employee. Each site must have some kind of sign-out procedure. We do have a sign-out template available in the attendance Excel document, and we will show you how to use that in the YouTube video. If you do not want to use that and you have some other method of sign-out procedures, that's completely fine by us, but we do want to have some record if a child was driven home, if a child walked home or biked home, and who signed them out.
For the next few slides, we'll be talking about first aid. We'll go over some of the most common issues that you'll face in a Soccer for Success practice, and also some weather-related issues. Here's a list of some of the most common first aid issues that you'll face as a coach. Allergies, asthma, cuts and bruises, heat-related illnesses, cold-related illnesses like hypothermia, and concussions. I won't be going over concussions because all coaches in the state of Colorado will have to do a concussion training. It's about a 20 to 30 minute video that you'll watch, and then you'll answer some questions, which should take about 5 to 10 minutes after you've watched the video. For allergies, just make sure that you know on the child's information if they do have allergies to anything or not. For asthma, make sure that you're prepared with an inhaler or whatever issues. Most of these issues should already be taken care of by the school, and you should already know from the school if they have severe allergies or asthma. Coaches will be receiving a one-pager, which will be a front and back of how to deal with some of these issues like cuts and bruises, heat-related issues, and things like that. That one-pager will come in an email to you. That way you can print it off or have it on your phone, whichever way works best for you. For sprains, remember RICE, which is rest, immobilize, compress, and elevate. And for cuts and bruises, you'll have a first aid kit on site that can help you bandage things like that. I want to take a moment to go over weather-related issues. Make sure that players are always dressed appropriately to be outside. For heat-related issues, heat cramps and heat exhaustion are probably something that you might have to deal with, hopefully not. If you notice that a child seems to be suffering from these, stop the activity immediately, send them to a cool area. If you do have ice or something like that that can cool them, go ahead and place that on their body, or have them drink lots of water while standing in the shade. Heat stroke hopefully will never happen, but if that does, call 911 immediately and then start cooling that person rapidly. Hypothermia is tricky when the sun starts to go down later on in the season. It starts to get pretty cold around 5 or 6, and if you're practicing outside and the sun starts to go down, players are going to get pretty cold. So just have a backup plan if parents are late picking up players or things like that, so that you have a place that you can get inside the school or something like that that can get the players warm while they're waiting for their parents. Also, if you're going to go outside on a cold day and a child doesn't have a jacket or something like that, if one of your players isn't dressed appropriately for outside, go ahead and take your team inside and put that child's safety first. To be prepared for each session, make sure that as you're setting up your playing area that you check to make sure that it's a safe area. No sprinklers or concrete or different things like that that could hurt a player. Make sure it's a nice safe area for you to hold practice. If you're worried about lightning, the WeatherBug app is a really great app to have. It gives you weather radar and also alerts you if lightning is in your area. Lastly, I just hope that none of you have to ever deal with these things, and that if you do, you feel very prepared with your one-pager. And if you have any questions about first aid, please contact Teddy Hagen.
Hi. During the next few slides, I will explain what equipment coaches will be responsible for and what equipment their players will be responsible for. As you can see, players will receive a jersey, soccer ball, pair of shin guards, and pair of socks. Coaches will have Ziploc bags to put shin guards and socks into so they are easy to keep organized. Players will use this equipment for the entire fall and spring season. Players can take home equipment on the last day of the spring season. Coaches will have cones and pennies to use during practice. There will also be one ball pump per site. Coaches will have a small mesh bag to store their players' jersey, shin guards, and socks into, and a large bag to store soccer balls, cones, and pennies. This year, coaches will pick up their equipment at coaches' training. If you have a coach that cannot make a training, they will need to come by our office to pick up their equipment. On the first day of the season, coaches will number their players' equipment with the same number that child is on the roster. This year, coaches will pick up their equipment at coaches' training. If you have a coach that cannot make a training, they will need to come by our office to pick up their equipment. The coach's bag should have 15 soccer balls that vary on size depending on the age that coach will coach, 15 pairs of shin guards, those again vary on the age, 15 Ziploc bags. As I said earlier, these will be used to help store the shin guards and socks, 15 pairs of socks, 30 cones, 15 pennies, and again there will be one ball pump per site. On the first day of the season, coaches will number their players' equipment with the same number that child is on the roster. Wait to number jerseys on scrimmage day, since players only wear their jerseys on scrimmage day. It is important that players understand what the number means and what they're responsible for. As you can see below, there is a guide on how to number equipment if you have 5 teams at your school. If you have less than 5 teams at your school, you will start with number 1 with the youngest player in the youngest team and go up to the oldest players. As I said earlier, children are responsible for their equipment. Players who As I said in the previous slide, players are responsible for their own equipment.
If their numbered ball, shin guards, socks, or jersey go missing during the season, they do not get a new one. After equipment is picked up, coaches should put equipment where you have told them to store equipment in the school. Coaches will use the small mesh bag to put the shin guards, socks, and jerseys, and they'll use the larger bag to put the soccer balls, cones, and pennies in.
Data collection is a big part of this program because we are an evidence-based program, and so we're always looking to make sure that we're proving that what we claim we do, which is fight childhood obesity, is what we're doing in all of our programs. So we're about to go through what that looks like in our data collection on test day and at your sites. So the first thing I'd like to address about data collection is why we're collecting, and it's kind of to answer the question, is our program having its intended impact? Are we fighting childhood obesity? Are we doing what we claim we're doing? And we want to look at that both locally and nationally. We want to use the data locally to be able to see if there are changes that we need to make in the program at specific sites, see if there's anything that we can do, bring in different partners, focus more specifically on nutrition, on physical activity, on mentorship, anything like that, gain more community support, gain extra funding. And then we want to be able to look at it nationally and see how we compare. We want to use data to show the highest levels of the federal government that this kind of sport-based intervention works. So we will be collecting preseason data during the first or second week of the program. Site coordinators will be running this with their coaches and picking which of those days, which will be indicated on their calendars. Those test dates need to be cleared with me by sending them in the calendar to Haley at rapidsyouthsoccer.org. I will get back to you to coordinate data collection equipment. And then we will do post-testing 56 days, at least 56 days after the pre-testing has occurred. Site coordinators will also run that testing, and it needs to also be coordinated with Haley so that data collection equipment be out at the site on time. And during these data collections, we're collecting data on BMI, which is height and weight. We're also collecting waist circumference measurements, data on aerobic capacity, which is measured by the PACER test, data on soccer skills through foundations and figure eights, and the participants will do a participation survey at the end of the season. They only do this in the postseason, which is a change from the last couple of seasons. Expected outcomes for the program are improved physical fitness, improved nutritional knowledge, increased exercise, and we expect them to improve other outcomes like positive relationships and ability to work as part of a team as well. So as a site coordinator, you'll pick 3 days during those first 2 weeks of practice when you'll do data collection. On day 1, you'll run BMI measurements. You'll have one team rotate into this BMI station at a time. You need to have a male and a female coach, someone who's been background checked by the U.S. Soccer Foundation and okayed by me and Sarah to do those measurements, and the rest of the children participants will be out on the fields playing in a normal soccer practice. Once the team who's in at the station being measured is done being measured, they will rotate out to practice and a new team will rotate into the station. You can choose if the coach that measures rotates based on gender or however you want to do that. You just need to make sure that there's always a male and female who's been background checked by the U.S. Soccer Foundation in the room at all times to do those measurements of boys and girls. For those measurements, we want to make sure that it's done in a classroom and out of sight of other children. We want the door to be open at all times. You can actually do these measurements outside, but we want to make sure that it's done, around a corner, away from the rest of the kids. We want to make sure the children are not being measured, who are not being measured, stand outside of the classroom and with another coach so that they're kind of being supervised. And they're not watching the kids who are being measured. The male coaches are measuring boys, female coaches are measuring girls. Again, those coaches need to be background checked by the U.S. Soccer Foundation. So if you're asking for help from a nurse or a PE teacher in your school, that's fine, and we totally encourage you to do that. Just let us know and we'll background check them for you. We want to make sure the kids are take their shoes off before they get measured, and they're wearing light clothing. Have them tuck their shirts in, and then we want to make sure that we're not repeating their scores out loud, so that other kids can hear. If the kids ask you their scores, you can certainly tell them, but we don't need to tell them their scores, and we don't want to tell the other kids' scores. If a child refuses to be measured or says that they're uncomfortable being measured, you certainly don't force them to be measured. When we're measuring BMI, we want to measure weight twice. You'll be provided with a scale. We want to make sure the scale's on a hard, flat surface. You can usually do this in a nurse's office, in a classroom, outside on the playground, as long as it's around a corner. And we're going to make sure that we're measuring in pounds, and we're going to write down the weight exactly as it reads on the scale with the decimal point and everything. If the weight looks off to you for some reason, turn the scale over, make sure that there isn't some sort of little switch that changes it over to kilograms or something, and make sure that we want to be in pounds. We're going to measure height with the kids' backs against the ruler, and we're going to record to the nearest 1/8 inch. So you can see here, we'll always have this diagram on your data collection sheet, so you can see what the nearest 1/8 inch looks like. It's the 1/2 inch, 1/4 inch, 1/8 inch. We're always measuring height to the nearest 1/8. And when we're measuring waist circumference, we're going to have kids tuck their shirts in, relax their shoulders, and point to their belly button, and we're going to record that to the nearest 1/4 inch, which is here. You'll be measuring that with a tape measure. Because we're a program that talks about nutrition and it talks about weight, and we're measuring weight and BMI and talking about body image and stuff a lot, we want to be aware of those sorts of things when we're doing these measurements. So I often talk, particularly with the 4th and 5th grade girls, but often with 4th and 5th grade boys and middle school boys and girls as well, about their BMI measurements before and during doing those measurements. So things that I try to mention is that our health isn't dictated by what we see on the scale, and that the way that we feel is much more important than those measurements, and that it's important for these students to realize that they're growing and their data points should change, and for them that there's no normal change and no expected results, so that they shouldn't be comparing themselves to each other. So if some kid gains 5 pounds, another kid gaining 8 pounds, they can't compare one to another, because 5 pounds on one frame is very different than 8 pounds on the same frame, or 8 pounds on a different frame. So we want to just make sure that we're discouraging students from comparing measurements with each other, because without that context of what their own frame is and what their body does with fuel and muscles and stuff, those measurements don't mean anything and can't actually be compared. So talk about how our bodies are all built differently, and different measurements mean different things for everyone. You absolutely can discuss how postseason measurements compare to preseason measurements, and we just want to make sure that you're doing it in a positive way. So, letting kids know that, hey dude, you grew, a 1/2 inch, that's awesome. Or when it's encouraging kids about the pacer test and telling them what their preseason score was and encouraging them to beat that in the postseason, because that's certainly something they should be able to do after 12 weeks of soccer. That's absolutely something that we'd encourage you to do. So you absolutely can discuss those things with them. We just want everyone to be sensitive about how we're discussing, particularly BMI and weight and body image. I did mention this briefly, but if a child says that they do not want to participate in any of the measurements, they're absolutely not required to. It is one of the things that parents sign on their waiver when the children sign up to participate in Soccer for Success. Their parents agree that we can take their measurements, but if a child is uncomfortable being measured or seeing their measurements, you can tell them, you can ask them to get on the scale backwards if they don't want to see their weight, or you don't have to tell them their measurements, or if they're really uncomfortable doing it at all, they really don't have to. I would encourage them a little bit more to do things like the pacer test or the soccer skills assessment, but absolutely with the BMI stuff. We want to be sensitive about that. Again, we want to make sure that only male coaches are measuring male students and only female coaches are measuring female students. That's for the protection of coaches and students. And that both the screener and the child that he or she is measuring are in the sight of another adult at all times. So again, thinking about that child protection section we talked about earlier, the behavior is interruptible and observable at all times. So on day 2 of your data collection, you're going to run the PACER test. So ideally, you set up your BMI station on day 1. You ran one team through it. Everything went well. They went out, played the rest of the day in soccer, had their normal practice day. The next team came in, did their 20 minutes at the BMI station. It's probably going to be less than 20 minutes. They got all their measurements done, went out, had the rest of their day in practice. Their next team came in, however many teams you just had them rotate through that BMI station. And then the next day of practice, day 2, is your PACER day. So you set up a PACER station. So the PACER test is run on a 20-meter or 15-meter course. And I would like you to indicate that on your data collection sheet, so that when you submit it back to me, I know whether I need to convert it before I input the data. So we're going to make sure that we're using the same course for pre and post-season testing so that the kids are familiar with it and so that we're getting a similar reading. And we want to make sure that it's flat and dry. Usually that means that we'd like it to be an indoor space, typically a gym or a cafeteria. This could even be a hallway. We're going to record the number of successful laps for each participant. So that's a single number, not levels. So each beep is a lap. So every beep that you hear is 1, and you're just counting beeps. They're also going to say a number after each beep, which is the number of laps that the participants have completed. That's the number that you'll be recording. Players are eliminated after missing 2 beeps. So if a child leaves the line and makes it to the next line before the beep, they're fine. If on the next lap they don't make it before the beep, they can still go one more before being eliminated. If on the next one they miss it again, then they're eliminated. You record the last successful lap that they completed, and it's up to you. You can let them keep running to just kind of tire themselves out, or you can ask them to sit down, but you need to record that last successful lap. If they do make that line before the beep, then they continue running, and you just know that they've already missed one, and the next time they miss a line, you record the last successful lap that they made. To kind of make it a little bit easier for you, you can have older children pair up with each other to kind of help you keep track of laps and help you keep track of when they're making it to the line before the beep. You can have coach running with the kids to help them kind of keep a pace. This helps a lot with the little kids to kind of make sure that they wait for the beep before they run, especially in the early laps because the little ones don't make it very far. And then during the post-test, we want to make sure that we're reminding them of their pre-test score and encouraging them to beat it. So this day will run kind of like that first BMI day. You'll set up your PACER station, have one team come in, run the PACER test. You'll have that coach help you facilitate the PACER, and then that coach will take their team back outside. They'll go back out to their regular practice day and send in the next team to run the PACER. That coach will help you facilitate that team's PACER. They'll go back outside when they're done, send in the next team, and you'll go through however many teams you have until you're done, and you have all those kids. Any kids that you don't get for those days for the PACER and the BMI, I encourage you to make up any other days throughout the week, or if you keep the data collection equipment for another day or so before I come to pick it up, you're encouraged to make it up for as many of those kids as you can. We're trying to collect data on as many participants as possible, so please try to keep that in mind.
Massive Aerobic Cardiovascular Endurance Run is a multi-stage fitness test adapted from the 20-meter shuttle run test. The test is progressive. It is easy at the beginning and gets harder. Set to music, this test is a valid, fun alternative to the customary distance run test for measuring aerobic capacity. The PACER is recommended for all ages. The objective of the test is to run as long as possible back and forth across a 20-meter space at a specified pace, which gets faster each minute. The first step will be in marking the 20-meter course with marker cones to divide lanes and a tape or chalk line at the end. Each runner should be allowed a pathway 40 to 60 inches wide. It may be beneficial to mark the lane lines with chalk or cones. Before test day, allow students to listen to several minutes of the tape so that they know what to expect. Students should then be allowed at least 2 practice sessions. Prior to the beginning of the tests, allow the students to select a partner. Have the students line up at the start line. The students that are recording the score should be behind the start line or on the sideline with a copy of the score sheet. The recorder will count the number of laps the participant completes. In the pacer test, a lap is one 20-meter distance from one end to the other. The recorded score is the total number of laps completed by the participant.
On day 3 of your data collection week, you'll have your coaches run soccer skills assessments. So this is designed to test players on basic soccer skills, ball mastery, speed, agility, and change of direction, and it complements the mentorship component of the program, which is kind of allowing coaches to build that relationship with players through encouragement and goal setting. So what we'd like is for the coaches to kind of be checking in with their players over like on a weekly or bi-weekly basis over the course of the season, and kind of seeing how these skills are developing and asking the players to kind of set goals and see how they can develop throughout the course of the season. And at the end of the season, we'll have a post-test to kind of prove it, but we hope that they'll work this kind of into practice and into the season a little bit more seriously this year. We're required to administer this assessment to children in grades 3 to 8, but we would encourage coaches of K-2 teams to do it as well, just to kind of complement that mentorship component as well. So all the soccer skills foundations assessment is the players start with the ball between their feet and they just touch it back and forth and see how many touches they can get in 20 seconds. So when a coach is setting this up, they just set up a 5x5 yard grid. They have players pair up, so they have 4 players working in each grid, so 2 pairs, and then they have one partner in each pair doing the foundations and the other partner counting for their partner. At the end of 20 seconds, they kind of decide what the count was, report it to the coach, and then switch out. So the next partners get into the grid, they do their touches, converse with their partner about what their score was after 20 seconds, report it to the coach, and then they're done. Coaches can use the same 5x5 yard grid that they use for foundations for the figure 8 skills assessment, as long as they use 3 cones for the 5 yard grid. They need to be about 2.5 yards apart, and then players will start behind the cone here. They'll dribble past the cone here, that's 1. Around the cone here is 2. Back past the middle cone is 3. Around this cone again is 4. Past this cone again is 5. They'll have 20 seconds. As they pass each cone, they get 1 point. Their partner helps them count, and because this will be a box, their other pair that was working in the other box would be working on the other 3 cones over here. After 20 seconds, the pair decide what the score was, they report it to the coach, and then switch out. And the next partner is able to take their turn. This season, we only have to do a postseason survey. We don't have to do a survey during the pre and postseason. So this isn't something that you'll have to worry about until about week 11 or 12. But we'll have the kids take it inside of a classroom or outside on the field. It can be submitted online if you have access to computers or electronic devices. So this is also something that you'll do on day 3 when the kids are doing their soccer skills assessment with the coaches. You can set it up as a station like you did with the PACER and the BMI, and have kids come in if you're going to do it on computers. And then you can rotate them in, 15 at a time. If you're going to do it inside a classroom with paper, you can have them come in to do it at the station. We'll have a paper version available in Dropbox in both English and Spanish. Unfortunately, right now it's only in English online. And we're going to have all participants take it this year. So It's age appropriate for all K to 8, and it's only 11 questions this year. So we want to emphasize to the kids that the survey isn't a test, and that this is how we're going to help improve the program. So we want them to be as honest as possible. And if the kids need help, you can certainly read through the survey out loud, but we want to make sure that we're not helping the kids answer the questions. So like I mentioned, the survey should be administered to all participants and all grade levels, K to 8. This year it's only 11 questions, which is much shorter than past versions. And then once you collect all of your site surveys, if you're doing the paper version, you'll be responsible for tallying the responses and then reporting them to me, Haley at rapidsyouthsoccer.org. You don't need to report children's names or anything like that. I'll just need, this many A's, this many B's, this many C's. And I'll probably get you an Excel spreadsheet that you'll just be able to put your number into to report that back to me at the end of the season. And that's it for data collection.
Next, we're going to discuss human resources. Paychecks will be delivered to schools on the first business day of every month, and final paychecks will be mailed out to home addresses. Please keep us updated if you move. Coaches will be given a list of every Soccer for Success coach with the coach's contact information. If you're not able to make a practice, please send out an email to these coaches to ask if they can sub for you. Also, let your site coordinator know and see if your site coordinator or another staff member at your school can sub. Please keep in mind that staff member must have been background checked by the U.S. Soccer Foundation. Just having a district background check does not clear that person to coach for the Soccer for Success program. If you do not show up for your planned session and do not notify anyone at your site, you can be removed from the program as a staff coach. After each practice, take a minute to evaluate yourself. Ask yourself 4 questions. Did I hold the children's attention? If not, how can I do that better? How well did I incorporate the nutrition into the practice? How well did I mentor the children? And how well did I teach soccer?
We hope that this has been a good introduction to the program and you feel well prepared to step out onto the field. We're excited to see you at coaches training. Hopefully we'll get to see you out on the field and coaching a little bit. If we don't see you at coaches training, we'll see you at your site sometime soon. We hope that you're excited to be a part of this program. So I just want to leave you with this video, kind of an overview of the national program, just to get you a little bit more excited about it.
The Soccer for Success program is an innovative after-school program that uses soccer as a tool for social change, specifically to fight childhood obesity and to provide positive mentors and role models for kids in at-risk environments.
It's a unique program. It's not really about competition. It's about healthy lifestyles. It's about nutrition, and it's about sports.
We're funding ongoing programming for these children, fall and spring during the school year, after school hours. After school hours for children are the most dangerous time for children in this country. We're filling that gap with a positive program that has health benefits, social benefits, and it's just plain fun.
The goals of the program are to positively impact youth in at-risk communities around the country.
It's been an incredible experience for the kids. One of the best things I like about it is that it involves both boys and girls. I have kids that come up to me now and say, Mr. Gonzalez, how can we participate in the program?
One of my students, Larry, that's here, the first day they started the program, Larry was hysterical. He was crying, the mama was dragging him. I came out here today and Larry's on the field, and it's worth it. I would give up anything to be able to see my children do this. He was so excited and laughing. It was like, it's all worth it. The hard work, it was wonderful.
What strikes me about Soccer for Success is that it's about character development. It's about building the whole child. Soccer is just the hook. And so we call that type of a program kind of sport for social change.
Coaches are not just talking about tactics and winning games. Coaches are trained to be educators and mentors. They teach the children about proper nutrition, what to eat, what to drink, the importance of being healthy and active and leading a healthy, active lifestyle. They serve as mentors that encourage the children to stay in school, stay out of trouble.
We immediately recognized the emphasis on diet, nutrition, exercise, and physical activity as much as there was an emphasis on soccer in the program.
I think at the end of the day, you really just want them to end up being young adults who understand that they have choices and they have options and they can make decisions to be good, successful, contributing people in society.
Clearly that number is 2 years old, so we're a lot bigger than that now and have a lot more going on. It's pretty exciting. So we hope that you're just as excited to be a part of the program this year. We're really excited to have you. And if there's anything that you need, please don't hesitate to reach out to Haley, Sarah, or Teddy at rapidsyouthsoccer.org. In your Soccer for Success manual, there's a list of all the things, who kind of the point person is on each of the topics that you might not be able to find information on in your Soccer for Success manual. But hopefully we've provided you with all the information that you need and you'll have a really great season. So good luck. Have a lot of fun.